Let's compare the A56 versus A16 and see if it's worth overpaying for the A56. This is spec I have on both. On the A16 I have the highest version with 8 GB of RAM and 256 GB of storage. On both phones we get 6.7-inch display. As you can see, the bezel size, however, on the A16, yeah, it's absolutely crazy compared to the A56. When it comes to the price, few days ago, okay, maybe like a week ago, for the A56 I paid 390 euros. At the moment it can be purchased for 365. This A16 comes in different variants, so the cheapest 4G with 4 GB of RAM can be purchased only for a bit over 100 euros, which I think is absolute bargain. And this particular one I have over here is around 215 euros at the moment. If we compare the 4G versus 5G of the A16, then definitely I would suggest you to go for the 5G. Not only we get better build quality on the back, also the CPU is much faster, also cameras are better, and again really there is no competition really gets the 5G, it's so much better. And again, if you can stretch it, get the 8 GB of RAM, because 4 GB of RAM again will be sluggish, and in 2025 I do not think 4 GB is enough. So if you actually get this variant I have over here, then this phone is actually very solid, an absolute bargain for the price, I can highly suggest. And this is what both of them look on the back. We do have the new camera bar on the A56. And the color looks pretty much the same on them. Also on the A56 we actually have glass back, versus on this one it's actually plastic, but you see it actually gets reflected and it actually looks very smart. So when you actually touch them, I honestly can't really tell that much difference. So I would even maybe prefer this kind of plastic back on the A56, since obviously it's more durable. So I definitely can't complain about the back of the A16 5G. So on the 4G we actually have different back which isn't as premium. So definitely the back on this phone is actually really decent. When it comes to the frame, however, it's completely different story. Basically on the A56 we actually get metal frame, so everything is metal, all the buttons are also metal. On this one the frame is plastic and the buttons are also plastic, and when you actually hold these phones in the hand, you can definitely instantly tell that this feels almost like a flagship phone, so it feels extremely nice. So yeah, it's one of the best phones Samsung has ever made. This one, well, it feels like a plastic phone, so definitely basically when you take it in hand it feels more cheap. But really if you are maybe going to use your phone with a case, then you probably won't even notice the difference really. And even though on the front we have the same 6.7-inch display, the refresh rate on the A56 is 120 Hz, whereas on the A16 it's 90 Hz. And this also is on the maximum brightness, so the maximum brightness also on the A56 is significantly larger. But in real life, as you can see, still the A16 actually looks really good. Also, as you can see, basically due to this extra large bezel on the A16, the A56, even though they have the same display, also is smaller. So you see basically less tall. Still the bezel, as you can see, yeah, on the bottom, but yeah, it's maybe 2 times smaller essentially. And also obviously we have the camera cutout and notch. So again, this looks more modern, but still you will probably get used to the look of this in maybe 10 minutes and you probably won't complain. And on the top I have the A56, and both phones are at the maximum brightness at the moment. And as you saw, basically it was almost impossible to tell the difference between the panel on the A56 versus this A16. So definitely the panel quality on these super budget phones is definitely absolutely awesome. So when it comes to all budget phones, I really think Samsung has the best panels on their budget phones. Absolutely awesome. When it comes to the performance, you can definitely notice the difference when you actually use both phones. For example, if we check the Geekbench score, so you can see this over here on this one is almost like 2 times larger. So if you were to compare the 4G, for example, then this indeed would be like more than 2 times powerful than the 4G variant. So out of all these phones, really, when it comes to the A16 model, if you actually were to get the base 4G with 4 GB of RAM, then actually that phone will be very sluggish. So I have also tried that, and then it's completely pathetic, really. So when it comes to fluidity and how everything fast opens, and again in 2025, basically the 4 GB of RAM really is not sufficient, let alone in future. So again, this phone with the 4 GB of RAM and 4G variant is definitely not future proof at all, so you probably need to upgrade very soon from that phone. But maybe let's do some side-by-side tests and see how both perform. For example, let's open camera first. So you see definitely on that faster. As you see, actually pretty decent difference. As you see, absolutely kind of massive difference here. So again, there is actually like a noticeable difference when it comes to these phones. And even for basic tasks. Let's also launch Subway Surfers. But still, for the price, I think still this is actually excellent value for money. Is that okay? So that was quite interesting because the A16 actually opened faster. That was unexpected actually. So yeah, that's interesting. So let's close all apps, and also let's try to open the heaviest game basically I have over here, the Asphalt, and see how it loads. But yeah, actually the Subway Surfers actually loaded faster on that one. Interesting. Okay, so already done, and yep, definitely slower. And when it comes to basic tasks, everyday tasks such as opening, loading apps, switching between the different apps, also opening like websites, still I would say the A16 is still like really decent. So still for such price this phone costs, I think it provides excellent value for money. And again, you probably can't really complain at all, especially considering how much this phone actually costs. Also, another huge difference between these phones actually is A56 actually has got dual speakers, and the sound quality is actually massively better. So we have one speaker over here on both, so on both phones, but on this A56 we also have another speaker over here, and the sound quality, I would say it's absolutely massive. So I would say like 3 times better easily on the A56. So definitely that probably is one of the biggest difference when it comes to sound quality, loudspeaker, and if you're listening music on the loudspeaker, it sounds absolutely awesome. By the way, also, for example, if I compared the A56 versus my S25, this costs like almost 2 times more than the A56. Then actually I prefer the speaker quality on this A56. So definitely the speaker is actually absolutely awesome. And also another huge difference on these phones actually is charging speed. For example, on this 56 we actually get 45 watts of charging speeds. On this A16 we have 25 watts charging speed. Still probably the charging speed is probably still okay, acceptable for the A16. I really can't complain knowing the price of it. When it comes to the battery capacity, they have the same 5000 milliamp hours. When it comes to the actual battery life, basically after using them, they appear pretty much the same. So, but I haven't used them for that long side by side, but still I would say they're pretty much probably equal, so when it comes to actual battery life. And when it comes to all phones, I think really Samsung phones out of all phones probably have the best battery life, especially these budget phones. And also on the A56 we also have better water protection as well, so we get IP67 versus IP54 only, so the water protection is definitely absolutely massive between these. When it comes to thickness, so A16 slightly thicker, but again, come on, when you actually compare them side by side, they look pretty much the same, so I wouldn't really say that you can tell the difference. So both actually feel very slim and very nice actually. And finally, when it comes to the camera quality, this is actually where you will notice a significant difference on these phones. When it comes to super cheap phones, the A16 probably has the best camera out of all super cheap phones for this price. I think for the price you really can't beat it. But this A56 actually has got significantly better cameras. And when you actually compare them side by side, even in good light, you can actually tell the decent difference basically in details and how it performs, how it exposes, and pretty much everything. And really the biggest difference probably is in the low light conditions. And when it comes to low light performance, I would say the A16 is completely pathetic. So maybe you can take some pictures in lower light conditions, still you will be still able to get some decent results, but for video recording this phone is no good really. So only maybe some pictures in low light conditions, but still this A56, even in lower light conditions, even for video, still it actually provides very decent results. When it comes to different camera modes, these phones have, I would say, the only difference probably is on the A56 we actually have the Pro video mode. On this one we do not have. Essentially we can control basically how our video looks like, and exposure, compensation, stuff like that. Also for video recording, on this we can record in 4K 30 frames per second. However, if you actually try to record video with this one in the main app, as you see, you can only record in full HD 30 frames per second. But actually the 5G variant processor actually is powerful enough to record 4K videos. So if you download a third-party software called Open Camera or maybe some other third-party software, essentially you can go in the settings. As you can see, basically if I go in the video settings, I can actually shoot in 4K as well with this A16. So, and Samsung is being extremely cheeky with this, so they have kind of locked this out from the main camera app. Maybe they simply want to protect their other phones, I do not know why, but again, so the phone is actually capable of recording in 4K videos, just not in the main camera app. And let's compare the quality on both cameras. Let's check for exposure and focusing speed. How is the white balance? This over here is S25, so you can see how it would look if you wanted to make videos like these with these phone cameras. And previously I was recording with my Google Pixel phone. And let's compare the quality on both cameras. Let's check for exposure and focusing speed. How is the white balance? This over here is S25, so you can see how it would look if you wanted to make videos like these with these phone cameras. And previously I was recording with my Google Pixel phone. And this is a video recorded outdoors. Let's check for quality. Also, let me try to run a bit. And finally, let's check for fine details. Also focusing. And this is a video recorded outdoors. Let's check for quality. So let me try to run a bit. And finally, let's check for fine details. Also focusing. And as you saw, in good light condition, we were still able to get fairly decent results from this A16 camera. And when it comes to low light conditions, generally that is a place where the A16 kind of falls apart and where the A56 essentially still gets you decent results. So I think that is the biggest limitation when it comes to cameras. And which phone should you actually get, the A16 or the 56? Well, I really think it all comes down to your budget really, because both of these phones actually provide insane value for money and both of them are actually worth it. So really, if all you have is like 160 euros, then really it's very hard to actually go wrong with this. So again, when it comes to all phones at this price, if you want to purchase brand new, this probably is the best phone out there. Not only we get like fairly decent screen, so the screen actually is like really decent, the build quality is still decent, it looks nice, the cameras are still good, and again the overall performance still is decent. For this price, I think, yeah, it's absolute bargain. But of course, if you actually want really good performance, then definitely pay a bit more, and yeah, it's totally worth it. So yeah, I actually personally I wouldn't purchase the 4GB version, so I think it will be too slow for me. But this one, again, if you are able to spend more, then this phone also is absolutely worth it. So I think it's absolutely great phone, as it actually pretty much feels like almost a flagship phone due to this extremely nice build quality. Also the cameras are really decent and the phone overall is very fast, very snappy, and again it totally feels like almost like you are using like entry-level flagship phone essentially if you actually get this phone. Also displays on both are, yeah, actually absolutely awesome. So really it's hard to actually answer which phone should you actually get, because both provide pretty much the same insane value for money and both phones are actually totally worth it. Anyway, good luck.